Imagine having the rug pulled out from under you, right? But then you look down and, well, you realize the rug was never actually there to begin with.
Right?
It was just like a painting on the floor. You totally relied on this illusion to keep you stable. And the moment it vanished, you just went crashing down.
Yeah, absolutely crashing down.
So today, welcome to a brand new deep dive where we are essentially dismantling everything you think you know about betrayal. I mean, you know the standard operating procedure for human survival, right? You get hurt, you build a massive wall, you label the person who lied to you as the ultimate villain, and you try to move on with your armor just a little bit thicker.
Which is completely natural, by the way.
Exactly. But the material we are diving into today takes that agonizing, universal human experience of broken trust and totally flips it upside down. Instead of seeing betrayal as this permanent scar, the text frames it as a powerful and actually necessary beginning to self-awakening.
It really is a radical paradigm shift. We usually treat betrayal as a story about the perpetrator. You know, what they did, how they failed, why they're so flawed.
Oh, 100%.
But the approach we're analyzing today insists that while the emotional weight of being lied to or abandoned is obviously super heavy, our goal shouldn't be to dwell on the other person's actions.
Right, which is easier said than done.
Oh, definitely. But the objective here is to extract this incredibly empowering blueprint from the pain itself. We are looking at the actual mechanics of betrayal, because embedded right in that acute suffering are the exact keys to your own liberation.
Wait, let's unpack this. Because to understand how a betrayal can possibly be an awakening, I mean, we first have to fundamentally redefine what betrayal actually damages.
Right.
When someone walks away without explanation, or I don't know, you catch them in a massive lie, the most natural instinct in the world is to put them under a microscope. I'll be honest, my first instinct is always to build this mental PowerPoint presentation of every single one of their character flaws.
I think we all have that PowerPoint ready to go.
We really do. But the premise of our source today forces us to look in the exact opposite direction. It forces us to look inward instead.
And that inward pivot is where the real work actually begins. I mean, we operate under this assumption that a lie tells us everything we need to know about the person who told it.
Right, we think it's all about them.
Exactly. And sure, it does reflect their character, but the much deeper psychological truth we are exploring is that these painful experiences actually expose our own attachments. They reveal our own expectations and bring our own carefully constructed illusions right to the surface.
Which brings us back to that painted rug on the floor. I mean, the security you thought you had in that relationship or that situation was never actually structural. It was really just an expectation you projected onto someone else.
Yes, a projection.
And the pain comes from the realization that you are relying on a complete mirage.
What's fascinating here is the underlying psychology of why we even do that in the first place. You see, our brains are essentially prediction machines. We crave this thing called cognitive economy.
Wait, cognitive economy?
Yeah, meaning our brains want to save energy by assuming the environment around us is stable and predictable. So we build these internal schemas, like these mental models, where our partner is always loyal, our job is always secure, our friends always have our back.
It's efficient.
It's highly efficient, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's fundamentally an illusion of control. So when someone betrays you, they violently disrupt that mental model. They unknowingly remove the veil that was preventing you from seeing reality.
So they didn't actually destroy your reality. They just shattered the illusion you were confusing with reality.
Precisely. Even if they were acting completely out of self-interest, the functional result for you is sudden exposure to the truth. Before the betrayal, you were operating under this veil of assumptions.
Wow. Yeah.
So the pain you feel in the aftermath isn't just the pain of losing the person. It's the intense cognitive dissonance of that veil being ripped away.
Yeah.
Your brain is scrambling because the map no longer matches the territory. It is the shock of sudden exposure.
It's like waking up in a completely different room than the one you fell asleep in. The disorientation is what really hurts. I mean, if you are building a house on a painted rug on this foundation of assumptions, a collapse is inevitable.
Right, it's just a matter of time.
The pain of the collapse is awful, but now you actually have the chance to build on solid ground.
But okay, that logically brings us to the psychological fallout, right? If we accept that our illusions have been shattered, how do we process that intense disorientation without just, I don't know, spiraling into bitterness?
That is the big question.
Because it's easy to say build on solid ground, but when you're literally sitting in the rubble, that is a really tall order.
It is, which is exactly why you cannot rely on your default ways of processing pain here. You have to completely change the way you interrogate the situation. There has to be this deliberate, conscious shift in your mindset from being a victim of the circumstance to becoming a student of the experience. So a shift from asking, why did this happen to me, to asking, what is this experience trying to teach me? I get the logic, I really do, but I have to push back on this a little bit.
Go for it.
Because if you are listening to this right now and you have just had your trust broken, say a coworker completely threw you under the bus to steal credit for a major project you worked on together, asking, what is this teaching me, is not going to be your first thought.
No, definitely not.
Asking why me or how dare they is a completely primal reflex. It feels fundamentally unfair. So how are you supposed to logically override that highly emotional response when your amygdala is just screaming red alert?
Your pushback hits on exactly why this is so difficult.
Yeah.
The why me reflex is totally driven by the brain's threat detection system. It is completely human to demand fairness in that moment.
Right. You want justice.
Exactly. But the point we have to understand is the stark, really uncompromising truth about where that reflex leads us psychologically. Asking why me is actually a trap. Yeah, it's a loop that keeps you tethered to the other person. Think about it. When you obsess over why did they do this, you are essentially trying to decode their behavior. And why do we want to decode it? Because it's this subtle, desperate attempt to regain control over them.
Oh, wow, that is so true. We think we're just looking for closure, but we're actually trying to debug their bad code. We operate under this totally false belief that if we can just figure out their motives, we can fix the bug, control the outcome, and guarantee it never ever happens again.
Right, but we don't have access to their source code.
Exactly, we don't have access to it.
You cannot debug someone else's software. And when you try, you're basically outsourcing your emotional stability to a person whose actions you fundamentally cannot control. True peace does not come from contraring others. It comes from understanding yourself.
That's a huge distinction.
It really is.
Yeah.
When you forcefully shift your internal interrogation to, what is this experience trying to teach me? You take the power back. You stop wasting your limited cognitive energy fighting what literally cannot be changed. The spiraling happens because we're at war with reality. We are demanding that the past be different.
We really do spend so much time negotiating with reality instead of just accepting it. If we stop trying to hack into someone else's motives, it forces us to look at what we are actually clinging to.
Exactly.
And if true peace comes from self-understanding rather than controlling external variables, well, we collide with a very uncomfortable truth here. Almost everything we try to control outside of ourselves is completely temporary anyway.
It is entirely fleeting.
Yeah.
And the psychology of emotional dependence is what makes this so dangerous. We have this huge tendency to anchor our internal equilibrium to external factors, wealth, success, relationships, the approval of others.
Right, we just assume they'll always be there.
Yeah, we treat these things as if they are permanent structures in our lives, but they aren't.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the philosophy we are exploring today groups relationships and praise into the exact same temporary bucket as pain.
Which is so counterintuitive for most of us.
Totally. We usually think of pain as this invasive, temporary thing we want to medicate and get rid of as quickly as possible. But we treat praise, relationships, and success as things that are supposed to be permanent. But if you look closely at the source material, they are all equally temporary.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, grouping praise and pain together is a really profound observation on the human condition. I mean, think about the concept of hedonic adaptation.
Remind me how that works again?
Sure. Human beings have this incredible ability to adapt to changes in our environment. So when we receive praise or achieve some big success, we get a spike of dopamine, right? But then we quickly adapt to that new baseline. We constantly need more just to feel okay.
Oh, I see.
We suffer because we expect the positive external things to last forever, and we panic when the negative external things arrive, convinced they will never leave.
I like to think of it like this. Praise is essentially a sugar crash.
Ooh, I like that analogy.
Right. It tastes amazing in the moment. It gives you a massive rush of validation. But an hour later, you are hungry again and looking for your next hit. You literally can't sustain yourself on it.
No, you can't.
Pain, on the other hand, is like a muscle tear. I mean, it physically hurts, it requires recovery time, but the physiological mechanism of repairing that tear is exactly what builds strength. It's really jarring to realize the good things are just as fleeting as the bad things, But when you really sit with it, it's actually strangely comforting.
It is, because it means you don't have to hold on so tight. That is the exact freedom this mindset shift offers.
Letting go of the steering wheel.
Exactly. By recognizing the impermanence of all these outside forces, you stop resisting reality. You stop gripping the steering wheel so tightly. You accept that relationships will evolve or end, success will ebb and flow, and praise is literally just air leaving someone else's lungs.
Wow, just air leaving their lungs.
Yeah, it vanishes the second it is spoken. If you build your entire identity around these temporary external factors, you're essentially investing your life savings into renovating a rented house.
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes, you are pouring all your resources, your peace of mind, your self-worth into a property where you don't even own the deed. At any moment, the landlord can change the locks or the market can crash, and you are just left with nothing.
And that is exactly why the focus must be on building your own foundation. Once you strip all of those temporary external validations away, the only thing that remains is the truth you discover within yourself.
Inner peace.
Inner peace comes from self-awareness. It cannot, by definition, come from an external source, because the external world is always in motion.
Which stops you dead in your tracks when you realize just how much of our daily anxiety comes from trying to freeze the external world in place.
Absolutely.
So if we accept that everything is temporary, that stops the spiraling. We aren't fighting gravity anymore, but it still leaves us at neutral.
Right. Neutral isn't the end goal.
No, it's not. How do we get from neutral to the actual profound growth we promised at the beginning of this deep dive? Because this brings us to the final and undoubtedly the most complex phase of this awakening, finding gratitude for the betrayal.
This raises a super important question, because the concept of gratitude in the face of a deep wound is often grossly misunderstood. It can very easily slip into dangerous territory.
Exactly, because if you are the listener and you're hurting right now, how do you realistically summon genuine gratitude for a massive lie without wandering straight into toxic positivity?
Right. It's a fine line.
And I mean, I certainly don't want to send my betrayer a thank you note, so how do you feel grateful for broken trust without feeling like you're just rolling over, or worse, justifying someone else's terrible behavior?
The short answer is you don't. And this is a really crucial distinction to make here. The gratitude we were talking about is absolutely not directed at the person who hurt you.
Okay, phew, because that would be a tough sell.
Oh, impossible sell. You are not required to be thankful that someone lied to you. And you certainly do not have to justify or excuse their toxicity. Toxic positivity says, I'm so glad this terrible thing happened because it made me stronger.
Right, which feels fake.
Exactly. Authentic gratitude says this terrible thing happened, and while the action was completely wrong, I am grateful for the clarity it forced me to find. The gratitude is directed entirely at the awakening itself.
So you're grateful that the veil is gone. You're grateful you are no longer operating in the dark.
Yes.
You aren't thanking the fire for burning your rented house down. You're grateful you survived it and finally learned how to build with brick.
Precisely. The illusion was a cage, and the betrayal was simply the mechanism that broke the lock. It's this ultimate realization that sometimes life doesn't break your heart to punish you. It breaks your illusions to set you free.
Breaks your illusions to set you free. Wow.
That is where the gratitude lives. You aren't thankful for the broken heart. You are thankful for the freedom that comes after the false expectations are completely shattered.
Because the pain is temporary.
Right. The acute pain of that heartbreak will inevitably fade, just as all temporary things do.
Yeah.
But the understanding and the self-awareness you gain from it will stay with you forever. That is the exact mechanism of how suffering is transformed into wisdom.
It breaks your illusions to set you free. That completely re-engineers how we view pain. It means every time we feel that sting of broken trust, it's actually an invitation to audit our own internal architecture.
It really is.
Let's trace the path we've walked today, because the logic of it is just so compelling once you internalize it. We started by looking at betrayal not as a statement about the villain in our story, but as a mirror reflecting our own minds.
Right. We explored the cognitive economy of the brain and how it naturally paints false rugs on the floor to make us feel secure.
And we identified that massive cognitive dissonance that hits when those rugs are suddenly pulled out from under us. We explored the absolute necessity of shifting our internal interrogation away from that threat response of, why did this happen to me?
Which we realized is just a futile, agonizing attempt to control someone else's source code.
Exactly. And we talked about replacing it with, what is this experience trying to teach me?
And from there, we confronted the myth of external stability.
We really faced the jarring reality that pouring our self-worth into wealth, Success, relationships, and praise is just investing in a rented house.
They're all just as temporary as pain.
We have to expect the sugar crash and learn to value the muscle tear. By letting go of our emotional dependence on those fleeting things, we realize that the only permanent truth is the self-awareness we build inside ourselves.
Which ultimately led us past the trap of toxic positivity and into a space of genuine, liberating gratitude.
Not gratitude for the betrayer.
No, never. But a deep, hard-won appreciation for the lifting of the veil. We learn to be thankful that reality, no matter how harsh it is to accept in the moment the illusion shatters, is the only thing that can truly set us free.
So, what does this all mean for you right now? I mean, instead of being a victim of someone else's erratic choices, you become an active student of your own psychology. You take the raw, messy material of their betrayal and you use it as fuel to forge your own inner resilience.
It's a complete power shift.
It is. Which leaves us with a question I really want you to mull over today. We've talked deeply about the pain that comes when someone else violently shatters our illusions. But if our suffering ultimately stems from our own false expectations, what relationships, what job titles, or what comforts in your life right now are you clinging to simply because they're comfortable illusions?
That is the real challenge, isn't it? It requires a tremendous amount of honesty to audit your own life for those painted rugs.
It really does. I mean, are you standing on a foundation you know deep down isn't real, just hoping the landlord never changes the locks? Are you waiting for a painful, unexpected betrayal to come along and rip that veil away for you? Or can you find the courage to look in the mirror and lift that veil yourself today?
It's a heavy question.
It's a heavy question and maybe a little intimidating, but the truth you find on the other side of that veil is the beginning of an entirely new way to live. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We know this was a dense one, but your curiosity and willingness to explore these concepts mean the world to us.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here and for doing the hard work of challenging your own perspectives with us.
Until next time, keep asking the hard questions, keep looking past the illusions, and keep diving deep. Take care of yourselves.